When test rendering a project, there's a terrific feature in Max called Active Shade that automatically triggers an updated viewport render anytime you change a light or material in your scene. This video will show you how it works. I'm using a file named Active Shade. Up until now, every time we wanted to render a scene, we found ourselves going to the far right side of the toolbar and clicking on the Render Production button. And that's worked great, but it's been a little bit of a hassle to render, close the window, change something, then have to render again. If the edits that we were making were either to the lights or materials in our scene, we could have instead been utilizing Max's Active Shade. Let's say, for an example, that we wanted to experiment with a couple of different colors of wood for our entertainment center. If we close the render window and open the materials editor, you'll notice on the top row sample slots that I've built a couple other materials giving each the name wood. Instead of manually rendering the scene each time a new skin was applied, I'll instead use the Active Shade. To do that, you'll activate the viewport you want to render, you'll click on the name of that view in the upper left-hand corner, and then drop down to the bottom of the menu, choosing Active Shade. This now creates an actual rendering of our scene. Now, anytime I make a change to the wood material in the cabinet, the Active Shade window will automatically update. Let's see what the cabinet would look like with a darker colored wood. I'll activate the sample slot in the middle of the top row, then drop down to the horizontal icons below the sample slots, clicking on Put Material to Scene. Just that easy, you see our scene now re-renders with the newly applied wood. If I instead wanted to see what the reddish colored material looked like on the upper right-hand ball, I'd activate that, and again click on the Put Material to Scene icon. If I, let's say, wanted to quickly change the image displayed on the TV screen, again with Active Shade on, seeing the results is both quick and easy. I'll select the material that I'd like to apply to the screen, and then watch this. This time I'll actually drag and drop directly down onto the screen in the Active Shade. One of the drawbacks of using the Active Shade viewport is the fact that you have lost one of your working windows, basically down now to only 3 views to physically manipulate the objects in your scene. When that's a problem, you can instead use a floating Active Shade. Let's first close the one in the view by putting our mouse on that viewport, right-clicking, and then choosing Close. Before activating the floating shade, let's open the glass door on the cabinet and zoom in on the blue plate on the bottom shelf. I'll select the glass panel, go to my Rotate command, and then simply open that door. Now let's go ahead and click on the blue plate. We'll change the camera view to perspective by typing P. And then we'll hit Z to do our zoom extent selected. Now we can go ahead and activate the floating Active Shade. You do that by going under the Render Production icon in the upper right-hand corner of the toolbar. Again, the icon looks like a teapot. You'll want to hold that down and then go down to the bottom icon. That now gives us a floating version of the Active Shade window. Let's say that we'd like to change the size of the design on the plate. Back in the Materials Editor, I'll activate that plate material, drop down to the image that's controlling its main body color, and then change the tiling. I'll do that in both directions, taking the tiling value to 0.5. Once you enter one value and press Enter, you will have to let the Active Shade window update. Once it's done so, you can then go down and change the second value. Now I also mentioned that the Active Shade works with lights. Let's close both the Materials Editor and the floating window. I'll now change the perspective view back to camera by hitting C, then going to any of my other viewports, clicking away from all the objects, then hitting Z again. This basically just recenters all the objects in the view. If you look in the top view, you'll see a spotlight that's been created in front of the entertainment center off to the left-hand side. I'm going to go ahead and select that light. I'll now go back to activate the camera view and reinitiate the floating Active Shade. Watch the view update as I move that light from the left-hand side of the scene over to the right. And if I move that light once again, let's say to the back side of the cabinet, you'll see the results automatically update in the active shade view. So that'll get you going with using the active shade, a great feature whether used as a floater or docked in a viewport. Make sure to put it to work in your next project.